Make America great again? Really? I think this. I think we have this. What's the word I look for? Rose-colored glasses to look at how good things were the way they used to be. And I think we need to go over that, frankly, because I think it puts too much idea like, oh man, it used to be so great. It's just not. I'm gonna prove it to you in this video. You're gonna be stunned. I was stunned, and I studied this stuff, and I was stunned. It wasn't all that in a bag of chips. Now that doesn't mean I'm voting for freaking Sniffy Joe Biden. I mean his clown of cabals. They're not good. These are evil people without question. Sniffy Joe and his band of But with that said, I mean, come on. And I get the campaign slogan for Trump, make America great again. It's simple, and that's what makes it good. It's good because it's so simple. Keep it simple, stupid, man. Make America great again. That's why in politics, Reagan said it best. You need three primary goals. Boing, boing, boing. Lower taxes, end communism. I'm not sure what the third one was for Reagan off the top of my head, but beat communism, lower taxes, and strengthen the military. I don't know, but that's what you need. Three. All these guys, my campaign thing on no, you need three, man. Three is make it simple. Anyway, but with that said, I just want to show you guys something. This is from the Census Bureau. We're gonna go to. Let me just show you. I find this stuff incredibly interesting. The 1960 Census of Housing marks the third decennial census of housing in the United States. All right, although the first census of housing was not taken until 1940, information on a few housing items is available for early years. But anyway, so we're gonna go there, and then we're gonna go. I think it was 21 is the right here. All right, so right here. Hold on, right here. Selected household equipment in 1960. We'll make this a little bit bigger so y'all can see. All right, this is crazy. Air conditioning units. This is 1960. 87.6% had no air conditioning in 1960. 87.6%, my friends. In 1960, I was born in 1970. Many of y'all were alive back in 1960. My wife didn't have air conditioning. She had 11 people living in her house. They finally got a couple window units. Certainly didn't have a window air conditioning. I mean, a central air conditioning. I think they had 2 window units, and she was born in 1974. 87.6% of American households had no air conditioning. And somehow we survived heat waves because there was massive heat waves back then too. Massive. This whole idea this is setting a record is just so dumb. It's unbearable having to do with these climate people. All right, let's keep going. Heating or water right here. Heating equipment, excuse me. And you can see it doesn't show in the 1940s. I'll show later on. But even here, 1.7% of the people had no means to heat. All right, we'll get in that maybe here a little bit more. It's interesting. Having none. 21% of Americans had no automobile. 57% only had one, and families were much bigger then. I got 4. Well, I gave one to Maddie, so we got 3. We got 5 drivers in this house and 3. Clothes dryer. 83% had no clothes dryer. Wash machine. 26% had no washing machine. 33%, a third, had a wringer or spinner, where the rest had a semi-automatic washing machine. That means you had to do it yourself, a wringer or springer. Home food freezer. This is 1960. 81.6% had no home freezer. Telephone. 25% had no telephone. Home food freezers, the proportion was much higher in rural areas than in urban, particularly for farm units. Over half the rural farm units had home food freezers. What? Approximately 39 million households, about 75%, had a closed washing machine of some sort. The percentage was lower in urban areas than rural, attributable partly to the greater availability of commercial and self-service laundries. Although regarded as a luxury item not many years ago, air conditioning was reported in 1960 for approximately 1 in 8 housing units. The great majority of these had room units rather than central air conditioning. In fact, I looked up the first room units that were built were in 1930s, and they cost like the equivalent of $300,000 today. $300,000. All right. The great majority had window units. By definition, air conditioning is restricted to installations which cool the air by refrigerating apparatus, as distinguished from evaporative coolers, fans, or blowers. So we're not talking about fans or blowing the air around, which is not air conditioning. It's not reducing the heat of the air, if that makes sense. Right here, for regions, the proportions with air conditioning were 18% in the South, 9% in the West. The range was substantially less than 2% in my home state of Maine had air conditioning to 30% Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. 1940, 40% of households had no bathtub or shower. 27% in 1950, and then 12% in 1960 had no bathtub or shower. In 1960, about 87% of the housing units had hot and cold piped water, whereas in 1950 it was only 70%, which meant that 30% of the population had no hot and cold piped water. And crazy on toilets. The proportion of units with a flush toilet inside the structure for exclusive use of the occupants increased from 60% in 1940 to 71% in 1950 and 87% in 1960. And that means 40% of the population had no flushing mechanism for toiletries in 1940. Still 29% in 1950. Even 13% in 1960. I wonder, could that have something to do with the lack of life expectancy, with dying from smallpox, measles, as opposed to something else? You know what I'm saying? Of course. You didn't have a place to flush. You didn't have a place to wash your hands. Of course, you got fecal matter all over the place, dude. You can't. That's rule number one. Wash your hands. Rule number one. Wash your hands. We know that from Ignaz Semmelweis. I got the guy's book someplace around here. I don't know where it's at. Wash your hands. And if you wash your hands, you're likely to increase your life expectancy. I'm not going to say exponentially, but certainly you're going to increase your life expectancy. Just wash your doggone hands. Anyway, you can't sit there and say America was great back then when we had no air conditioning, when we had no freaking. A lot of people didn't have heat. Plumbing. Refrigeration, clothes dryers. It's crazy. It's crazy. Look, I get it. We always look, I remember back when life was so simple. My mom used to have this, when we lived in Peaks Island in Maine, used to have this thing that was like an old farm lady, like a cartoon kind of thing, almost like a Raggedy Ann. It said, remember how simple life used to be. This is in the 1970s. Now today, modern, look back in the 1970s, oh, it's so simple. Back in the 1970s, they're looking back to remember how simple life used to be in 1930s and stuff. Anyway, I'm not trying to make America great again in that regard. I like my creature comforts of air conditioning, for heaven's sake. Can you imagine? My great grandparents lived in Phoenix, and it wasn't Phoenix. It's actually they lived in Bisbee, Arizona, when they first. I don't know if they first arrived here. I'm not sure, but anyway, they lived in Bisbee, Arizona in the 1910s. Yeah, something like that. No air conditioning down. And it's still just as hot back then as it is now. And they survived. Yeah. Make America great. Not again. Make America great in the future is I don't know how you say that better. Make future America great. That's what we want. But I get it. I mean, Trump, I get what he's doing. But just like, man, don't go back wishing for the days gone by because they're just not as good right now. In terms of your comfort level, you've never had it so good. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. All right, God bless. We'll see you.